Good evening. I am Cynthia Elliott, President of the Rochester Board of Education. We are convened for a public hearing. Exploration Elementary Charter School for Science and Technology. Also for a public hearing for True North Rochester Preparatory Charter School, Virtus Charter School, as well as Academy of Health Sciences Charter School. So we'll start with the first public hearing for Exploration Elementary Charter School for Science and Technology, and the date is October 3rd. The Education Law Subdivision 2857-1 and regulations of the Commission of Education, 8 NYCRR Section 119.4 require the board to conduct a public hearing within 30 days of receipt of notice of an application for a new or revised charter school. The Board of Education of the Rochester City School District is conducting this public hearing regarding a charter school renewal for Exploration Elementary Charter School for Science and Technology. The purpose of this hearing is to gather community input to provide to the State Education Department. Exploration Elementary Charter School for Science and Technology has a current charter term of July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2024, with a maximum enrollment of 475 students in kindergarten through 5th grade. Exploration Elementary Charter School for Science and Technology proposes a new term to begin July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2029. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of the Exploration Elementary Charter School for Science and Technology? Is there a speaker on Zoom for this public hearing? All right, okay. So having no speakers, this public hearing is closed. Rochester Preparatory Charter School. The Education Law Subdivision 2857-1 and regulations of the Commission of Education, 8 NYCRR Section 119.4 require the board to conduct a public hearing within 30 days of receipt of notice of an application for a new or revised charter school. The Board of Education of the Rochester City School District is conducting this public hearing regarding a charter school revision for True North Rochester Preparatory Charter School. The purpose of this hearing is to gather community input to provide to the SUNY Charter School Institute, True North Rochester Preparatory Charter School, and Education Corporation, with the authority to operate more than one school, requests to change the Education Corporation's name to Rochester Prep Charter Schools and to change each of its schools' names as follows. The current school name is True North Rochester Preparatory Charter School. The proposed new school name is Rochester Prep Charter School 1. The next one, the current school name, True North Rochester Preparatory Charter School West Campus. The proposed new school name is Rochester Prep Charter School 2. And the last one is the current name, Rochester Preparatory Charter School 3, to be renamed, proposed new school name, Rochester Prep Charter School 3. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on behalf of this public hearing? Hearing none, this public hearing is closed. The next public hearing is Virtus Charter School. The Education Law Subdivision 2857-1 and regulations of the Commissioner of Education, 8 NYCRR Section 119.4 require the board to conduct a public hearing within 30 days of receipt of notice of an application for a new or revised charter school. The Board of Education of the Rochester City School District is conducting this public hearing regarding a charter school renewal for Virtus Charter School. The purpose of this hearing is to gather community input to provide to the State Education Department. Virtus Charter School has current charter term of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024, with a maximum enrollment of 340 students in grade 9th through 12th. Virtus Charter School proposes a charter school renewal to begin July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2029. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of this public hearing? All right. Hearing no speakers for this public hearing is now closed. And the last one is the Academy of Health Sciences Charter School. The Education Law Subdivision 2857-1 and regulations of the Commission of Education 8 NYCRR Section 119.4 required the board to conduct a public hearing within 30 days of receipt of notice of an application for a new or revised charter school. The Board of Education of the Rochester City School District is conducting this public hearing regarding a charter school renewal for the Academy of Health Sciences Charter School. The purpose of this hearing is to gather community input to provide to the State Education Department. The Academy of Health Sciences Charter School has a current charter term of August 19th, 2019 through June 30th, 2024, with a maximum enrollment of 450 students in grades in 5th grade through 8th grade. The Academy of Health Sciences Charter School proposes a new charter term to begin July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2029. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of this charter school? Hearing none, this public hearing is closed. All right, so let's go back and have her to speak. Thank you. All right, what is her name? Ms. Simmons, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Ms.
I was
Simmons,
here
can
waiting.
you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Is it possible if we can't to get her comments?
I can hear you.
Ms. Simmons?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Good evening.
Good evening. I was actually scheduled to speak, President Elliott, on behalf of Exploration Elementary Charter School, which was your first one, and had been waiting in the Zoom link.
You can speak now, ma'am.
Okay, I was trying to turn my video on, but it's not giving me the option.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Good evening. I am Rochelle Simmons, the proud principal of Exploration Elementary Charter School for Science and Technology, located here at 1001 Lake Avenue. Tonight, I'm here to share our vision and mission with you. At our school, we serve up to 475 young explorers in grades K through 5, and our vision is every child, every family, every day. We are dedicated to engaging students, their families, and the community in scientific inquiry and innovative technology. Our goal is to equip students with the social, emotional, and academic tools they need to thrive in school and in today's interconnected world. In our 7th year of operation, we are thrilled to announce the expansion of our STEM classes. We now have a dedicated science lab, makerspace, and computer science program. Furthermore, we remain committed to maintaining smaller classroom ratios by ensuring that each instructional space has 2 adults. This model includes combinations such as 1 teacher and 1 teacher aide, 1 teacher and 1 teacher assistant, or 1 teacher and 1 special education teacher. We hold high, rigorous expectations for all of our explorers, using data to drive any and all decisions that are made. We make our decisions with students and families at the forefront. Qualitative and quantitative data are accessible, transparent, and readily available so that we may monitor student progress and evaluate the quality and effectiveness of our educational programming. Both types of data provide us with a holistic, comprehensive picture. Real-time data about students' progress permits our teachers to have complete access to how their students are performing daily. We continue to use that data to personalize and differentiate instruction and to inform support needed to meet students' needs. Our instructional time is complemented by coaching supports and professional development designed to maximize students' time spent on tasks with defined systems and routines. As we approach renewal, we are seeking a 5-year extension from the Board of Regents in the spring. Throughout our journey, Exploration has worked tirelessly to foster strong relationships with our families and the community. We recognize the vital role that these stakeholders play in our academic success and the growth of our young explorers. We continue to strive to meet or exceed New York State testing expectations. Our explorers will tell you that I have 2 important jobs: to keep them safe and ensure they receive an education. Our explorers are curious, critical thinkers who are reflective, resourceful, and persevere. It is through their dedication and hard work that allows me to be here advocating for them today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Principal Simmons. That charter school was already closed. Thank you. That ends our public hearing for charter schools.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am Cynthia Elliott, President of the Rochester Board of Education. We are convening our special meeting of October 3rd to convene for consideration of unfinished and new business from the September business meeting. I'm calling this meeting to order. There are no speakers for tonight's meeting, but before I go on to the agenda, I wanted to just talk a little briefly about what happened in our previous meeting, and just to say that from a spiritual perspective, I had to check myself to see if I was doing what God had called me to do with regard to how you interact with your enemies. And so I went home and I had to do some repenting, because in my heart there was another way in which I wanted to handle the situation that happened last week. But having said that, as I was in prayer about it, what God was showing me is that sometimes God brings your enemies so he can destroy them. Sometimes your enemies are brought so that they could be destroyed. And so I will just say, for those who are the enemies of this district, now is not the time to come against in a way in which you are attempting to destroy this district, because God will be after you. There's a work that God is doing here. We're going to see it through, and you're not going to stop the work that God has to do. But I will warn again, those who will come and try to attempt to destroy the work that's being done in this district, you'll have to contend with God, and he will destroy. And that's what I'll say with that. And so, having said that, the next item on the agenda, many of these were postponed from the September 28th meeting. We didn't get a chance to hear Superintendent Blocker's presentation, and so Superintendent Blocker, we will hear your presentation now.
Thank you. Good evening, President Elliott, Vice President LeBron, Superintendent Peluso, Commissioners, and the Rochester community. The East EPO is thriving, and I am excited to share our September updates. First, I would like to congratulate and give recognition to our August graduates. We ended with a final graduation rate of 79% for the 2019 cohort. These scholars exemplified our mission of being tenacious, thinking purposefully, and advocating for self. Some finished later on than expected, some finished earlier than expected, and all showed perseverance. We had our first ever back to school barbecue in August. It was attended by over 700 people, some people that you might even know up there on that screen. Look at that beautiful woman, yes. A special shout out to Rob Daniels for this event and many others that he has been capturing pictures at for us to have. It was a great way to welcome back our families, introduce new families to the East Way. I'd like to thank our custodial staff for having our building ready and clean for a smooth opening, especially after hosting the RCSD Summer School. We want to thank each of you for your efforts that you put forth so that our children were welcomed to a cleanly environment. It was wonderful to open our doors for the 23-24 school year and to see so many smiling faces. We have gotten off to a great start with a higher enrollment than ever since the APO, with 1,155 scholars currently enrolled. We are proud of the academic opportunities that we are offering here at East. At the lower school, we are offering 5 opportunities for high school credits: studio art, Spanish, algebra, living environment, and Spanish language arts. We are offering 16 dual credit courses this year from 4 different colleges. This is our first year ever of being approved to teach 2 different college English courses, and I'm very excited about that opportunity for our scholars. We are also offering 9 advanced placement courses. Our goal for all 3 of these academic items is to start our scholars off earning credits early helping them end, prepared to transition seamlessly into college with credits under their belt already or into successful careers. We were fortunate to have 18 scholars that attended the Boundless Together Conference on Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Justice through the U of R. A former RCSD Edison graduate, Dr. Bettina Love, led a truly compelling conversation on the role each of us play with diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. So I'm thankful our scholars had the opportunity to go and attend that. We are hosting a clothing and food drive for our urban closet and food pantry that serves the entire East community. We have received many donations, and it is always a plus to be able to meet the needs of our families internally through external community support. We are focused on building scholar voice and leadership at East. The Lighthouse team leads tours, runs events like dances and pep rallies, leads goodwill toward others, such as the hurricane relief efforts, and we are hoping to have our largest group of Lighthouse scholars ever. We are finishing up our applications for that. It ended on this past Friday. We have found over our 8 years that the 9th grade credit accrual rate is very indicative of our 4-year graduation rate later on. Our freshman academy is doing an all-out blitz to keep families informed and to celebrate weekly success. They are sending out an amazing newsletter each week that covers a multitude of areas, such as social-emotional suggestions, grade checks, upcoming events, and content covered for each of the classes. In addition to that, we are also showcasing 3 scholars each week and doing staff shout-outs. These are also placed on a bulletin board in the hallway so that the scholars continue to receive their recognition even after that week ends. We proudly celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month in many different ways. We had a dinner combined with open house that was attended by over 400 guests. We do a spotlight on Latinos driving prosperity, power, and progress in America. And we put the focus on East graduates making a difference as well as nationally recognized people. This one up here right now, Jonathan Aponte, was an East grad in 2000 and currently is a captain in the Rochester Fire Department. We are celebrating Spirit Week. Well, it ended last week Friday with our homecoming. Today was Throwback Thursday, last week when we had our meeting, and I happened to be the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Several of the scholars didn't actually know what that was, but the teachers got the idea. But we had a lower school pep rally, and we had the upper school pep rally on Friday, and it was just a wonderful event for all. And then last, I just wanted to share, I'm incredibly proud of the athletic offerings we have at East. We have 17 teams participating right now in the fall. I want to note that for the first time in 45 years, we have students that are playing modified, JV, and varsity soccer, and that's a direct result of the push we have had in the community to get more kids involved. And for the first time ever, we also have 2 JV girls volleyball teams due to interest. We know the more we keep our scholars engaged in healthy activities, the more likely they will reach the graduation finish line. So we are very proud of our fall sports. Tonight is our senior night for our soccer team. Great things are happening here at East. We continue to work hard. We're thankful to be working closer in conjunction with the district, and we appreciate everything that each individual does to make East and the RCSD a great place to be. That concludes the East EPO presentation.
Thank you, Superintendent Blocker. The next item on the agenda is to discuss a governance framework. The state monitor is going to be recommended to us that we have a framework by which we govern our district. And so, and I know that some of our colleagues are participating in the Council of Great City Schools program around governance. And Mr. Elisea, would you mind just talking a little bit about what your thoughts are around recommending a governance framework?
Good afternoon, President Elliott, Commissioners. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I have been observing since last year the relationship and everything that is taking place at board meetings. I have talked to staff members and I have talked to each one of you individually. I think that it is necessary for the board to continue to move forward to adopt a governance model. I'm not saying which one because, I mean, there are great models out there. But as you move forward, if you have a governance model, you're going to have a new strategic plan that should be also aligned to that. The reorganization of the board, whether you're going to have committees, whether you're going to have committees of the whole, whether you have different sections. I know that the previous state monitor recommended to reduce the number of meetings. So all that could be realigned and develop in a new governance model that you can move forward to be more effective and to communicate that model to the stakeholders. So by doing that, you will have some guidelines that people will follow at board meetings, and you will, I believe you will continue to be more productive. Not that you're not, but that you will improve.
So Mr. Elisea, are you referring to, and I'll open it up for questions, are you including in terms of the governance framework, perhaps reducing the number of meetings, committee meetings, as well as just the number of meetings overall, but talk a little bit more about how you think that a governance framework can help us to be a more efficient and effective board. I think that we've come a long ways, but of course, you know, we always can improve. So if you could talk a little bit more about what that may look like.
Okay, based on my experience as a former superintendent in Syracuse, we have the business meeting and we have 2 work sessions. One was for academics and the other one was for operations. So all the items that we needed to bring to the board meetings went through those 2 work sessions. We have an audit committee that it was quarterly. It was not every month either. But we have the opportunity to communicate, have dialogue, and include everyone. They were not committees as a whole because sometimes we wouldn't have quorum for the meetings. All we needed was, 3 commissioners to be there, and we were able to hold those meetings. So it's just, you are all professional, you're busy, and you have quite a few things going on in your life. So it's just making sure that you're able to run business when you need to.
Thank you. Any questions about the governance framework? Okay, hearing.
I do, President Elliott. I don't know if you can hear me.
Vice President?
Yeah, I would, I personally would like to see some frameworks versus having a conversation about introducing the frames and not having something concrete. And I just have to say, although great city schools may have a good model, there's only technically 1 or 2 commissioners who have gone through that program and are familiar with it. So I would not be comfortable like saying, yeah, that's the model we're going to use. The other piece I would like to understand is how that's different from having your governance structured through your bylaws. And then I just also want to, and I say that because I was researching a school district down in California, and they have some interesting things in their bylaws that we don't have in ours. But the other piece I just want to add is, as a reminder, why we're committee of the whole, because our current state-appointed monitor wasn't here during that time, but essentially there was no trust. And the way that committees were being ran before, you had 3 commissioners, and there were times where during the committee process, things were essentially decided on, and I don't want to dig up the past, but things were decided on when there was members of 3, and then they went and found the 4th workflow to make it happen. And it just caused a lot of confusion, chaos. And so Jaime, the original Jaime, his first recommendation was that when he was the distinguished educator, was that we move over into this committee of the whole model. That way, all the commissioners are hearing the same information at the same time. Nobody's having to repeat themselves, if you will, right? No, nobody's not a part of the conversation, and it would take longer, I think, the old way of doing things. But I would love to figure out how to be more efficient in these meetings and cut back in total. That's it.
So, any other questions or comments relating to
Yes, my hand is raised. I don't know
Okay,
if
Commissioner, let me just, before I go to Commissioner Simmons, just let the community know that both Commissioners Simmons and Vice President LeBron are on Zoom. Commissioner Simmons?
Yes, thank you. I'm out of town for a conference, but not to be redundant, but I am interested in looking at a variety of frameworks, at least, I think at least 3 different frameworks to do some comparison, just to make sure we're doing our due diligence in regards to what is the best fit for our school district, the Rochester City School District, and maybe doing some pros and cons so that we can, make that decision. And we may even find a medley between the frameworks, because we have the ability to be flexible in that manner. So I do want to put that out there and consider that.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Commissioner Adams?
Can I talk? Yep. So, I've actually had a few discussions about this governance thing, and this board got in trouble under governance. Governance didn't stop this board from getting in trouble. Some very controversial stuff. And I'm just hoping that whatever we decide on can help guide us in a better direction, but not, one of the recommendations I heard was focusing on student outcome, and that's focusing on student outcome is a good thing, but at the same time, we have to address ridiculous adult behavior. We have to call out racism when it sticks its head out the window. There's some things that we have to do, and so I'm just hoping that whatever this board decides, that we're just being honest. That's all I have.
No, that's yours. Yeah. All right. Commissioner Malloy?
I'm also open to looking at different, am I on now? I'm also open to looking at various frameworks just to do our due diligence, but we have to look at some of the investment that we've already done as a board. I know that 2 commissioners have been in year-long training for the Council of Great City Schools. We also invested a great deal of money for the Harvard Accelerating Board Leadership and Capacity back in July, which some members weren't able to attend, but that was also hosted by the Council for Great City Schools. And so they have a really viable model that is being adopted across the US, and anything that can help us actually be more student outcome focused so that during meetings we're not focused on adult behavior but on student outcomes, that will serve us well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. And I was just reminded that, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Powell, excuse me. No, go ahead. It'll turn green.
Thank you. My only thought on this topic at this point in time is a reminder that these 2 new board members are going to be seated in January. And I think it would be a helpful courtesy not to commit to a change until they've had a chance to actually sit through maybe one quarter, one 3-month period under the current model, and enough that might offer enough experience that they could determine for themselves whether that's, our current structure has too many meetings, or whether the committees are effective or ineffective. And I think a little bit of time for the new members would be a tremendous gesture of respect towards them, and give them an opportunity to weigh in on what our new governance structure might be.
Thank you.
Can I ask one last question?
Hold on a minute, Commissioner Simmons.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Powell. Commissioner Simmons?
I just wanted to know, can someone remind me the timeline that we're working within? Because I do recognize the sense of urgency in making sure we do identify a viable governance framework. Again, I want to do due diligence, but I also want to avoid kicking the can down the road and, going so far and so long that we, avoid doing what we need to do. So can someone remind me on the timeline that we've committed to, or have we?
Well, we still have to do an RFP. We just can't decide that we're going to, if we're looking for a certain vendor.
No, I mean timeline in which we would like to have identified one. So I know we have to kind of do research this in consideration to your point, President Elliott,
Yeah.
but do we have a timeline? In other words, like, hey, by September of 2024, we want to have identified a governance framework, or by January or by December? Do we have a timeline like that?
Mr. Alisea, what's your recommendation?
I will recommend for July 1st, 2024, the beginning of the school year, because you have to do the RFP, you have to do professional development, you have to include the new members that are going to be part of the board, like Commissioner Powell said. So I'm recommending for July 24.
Okay, thank you. That places things in context for me.
All right, any other questions or comments around the governance framework?
Yes.
Is that
President
Commissioner
Elliott,
LeBron?
did you see my hand up?
Wasn't looking, I'm sorry.
It's
Vice
okay.
President LeBron.
Just some points of clarification. 3 of us, myself included, were scheduled to go to the Harvard class. Regardless of who was doing it, we didn't get to make it because of the airline. And so I know that there's some misinformation out there. For myself, I want to clear the record that 3 of us attempted very hard to go. We even looked at even potentially renting a car, but at the time the airline delayed us multiple times, we were unable to go. I know for me, it's still on my radar to go next year. But I, again, would prefer that we research and look at least 3 models to then come back to this conversation. And even before the new members are sworn in, I've said this before, anybody who runs for school board and doesn't look at the meetings, attends the meetings, and understands what they're getting themselves into, they bear that responsibility of doing that work up front. So I just want to put that out there, because nothing stops us from waiting till they get sworn in. We can pass along the models that we're looking at for them to start reading now, so that when they're sworn in, we can pick up and keep things moving. I don't personally want to delay and wait, and I get that 2 new people are coming on, but it takes 4 votes. And that's all I'm going to say. Like, I don't want to be delaying it. But I'm okay with us taking the time to research what's out there. And also look at, again, 1 or 2 board members going through a program does not equate to a model that we all like jump on board, because none of us, besides the ones that have been attending, are familiar with the model and what the concept is. And if it wants to be presented, they want to put in for an RFP, and they can put in for an RFP and we can look at their proposal then. But I do think that our next steps should be to start preparing an RFP to put it out there. And again, the new oncoming board members can get copies of those RFPs and any executive sessions that we have to discuss them, because it is still a legal obligation for us to not have that conversation in public if we're going to be detailing and talking about these proposals, that they can be invited. The board has the autonomy to invite them into any special executive session. So I say that we not hold up until they're sworn in, that we start the work and just figure out a way to get them to be involved and included. And again, there's thousands of videos at this point of board meetings, the board structure, and they can start doing that work. Thank you.
And not to beat this over the head, I'm gonna get off this mic, is not only were we considering driving options and other, we also considered other airlines and even tried to find additional flight opportunities with the airline in which we were flying. And they did not have anything for that night. And I think the soonest they would have gotten us out of there was the evening prior to us having to leave the following morning. So we would have missed the program regardless. And so I think it's really important that if there are concerns around those type of things, that people just have really direct, crucial conversations and get clarity before they put out false narratives. I think that's imperative because that then builds trust versus mistrust. Thank you.
All right, so Commissioner Malloy wants to respond.
Thank you. I just wanted to agree with Vice President LeBron when she said that we have to avoid kicking the can down the road. Oncoming members will,
I said that.
Oh, you both did. Pardon me. They have the opportunity to look at our board meetings online. They should be aware of what we're already committing to and the work that we've already done. I think all of this is about public transparency, and part of that transparency includes, professional development for the board and what we are spending on that professional development. It's expensive, and we want to make sure that we're honest with the public about, when those things don't work out, what those costs were and why. But we can't kick the can down the road any longer. And if we truly want to be student outcome oriented, we have to find a governance model that isn't going to change every time new people are elected onto the board.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Malloy. But let me just say, if we take a look back from where we first started with this board a couple of years ago, I think we're moving in the right direction. I think that we all have, to learn. I think that, professional development is in order, and I think that many or most of us have participated in some form of professional development, and I think that it's going to be necessary for us to continue to participate in professional development. And to your point, Commissioner Malloy, and I think that we're all of the same mind, that we want to make sure that, we've got an educated student body, that we're focusing in on student outcomes. And of course, that's been a part of the professional development, because while we thought we were, I think, subconsciously we were, but we were not specifically focused on student outcomes, but these other things that we thought would lead to student outcomes. And so it's incumbent upon us as boards, as commissioners, to be able to, in our conversation, in our languages, as we're talking about different things, the question becomes, and how does this impact student achievement? So I think that from Council of Great City Schools, which I have participated, as well as me participating in the Harvard program, that's what they talk about. They talk about, student outcomes. And so I'm glad that that's where we are. I think we're moving in that direction. We're always going to be improving. Commissioner Powell?
Thank you. I feel I need to clarify my own comments. First of all, by the time we have our November business meeting, we will have 2 board members elect. That's not that far away from now. The other thing I want to underscore with the idea of including board members elect and new board members once they are sworn in into the conversation is, I'd like each of you to reflect on what it was like on your first day. Yeah, you probably watched board meetings on YouTube. You probably watched every one of them. But there's no substitute for being in the room, being an active participant, for really and being included in the conversations to really get a sense of the way things are working. Otherwise, you know, when you just watch it on YouTube, you're just entertaining yourself. You're not absorbing new information in that way, as far as I can tell. And I challenge anyone here to reflect on their first month, 3 months, 6 months, year in the seat, and tell me that you understood exactly what was going on and how things worked. So I'm just asking for us to be as inclusive as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Powell. Commissioner Malloy, and then this will be the last comment on this.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Powell, for just mentioning inclusivity and how important it is. I agree. I will say this, our kids can't wait. Our students are at the lowest achievement I think they've ever been. And that leadership has to come from the top, from the board, and it would behoove us to get into this as soon as we can to have better student outcomes. Our kids need us.
So, yeah, I think we are moving that way, and, you know, it's just, we got to do the work now. So thank you all. So I'm moving on to the second readings. Commissioner Powell, I'm going to turn this over to you for the second readings and rescinding the policy of the second readings, first readings, and then rescinding the policy of the first meeting. Commissioner Powell?
Okay. Thank you for the floor. Much of this was included in my policy committee chairman's report from our last meeting. Specifically, the second readings include, and this is for our listening audience, because we did not have an opportunity for speakers tonight, but we did have opportunity last meeting. We have, the community has one more opportunity next business meeting to weigh in on the following 8 policies that are being presented with revisions. The first is gender-neutral single occupancy bathrooms, policy 0101. The second is our sexual harassment policy, number 0110. The third is the public engagement policy, 1140. The fourth one is visitors to schools, policy 1240. The fifth is school-based planning, 2265. The sixth is personnel goals, number 9000, that's brand new. Number 7 is staff complaints and grievances, that's policy 9140.1. And the last revised policy being proposed for next, for later this month is professional learning and staff development policy 9700. We are recommending one policy be rescinded. That's the staff substance abuse policy 9610. In large measure, this policy is redundant to other policies already on the books.
All right, thank you. And the next item on the agenda is the, we talked a little bit about it in our conversation around governance framework, but the board committee structure and...
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that was just the second readings. Do we want to do the first readings?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, all of it.
Oh, all of it, okay, all of it. So out of our last policy committee, we moved 9 policies to the full board, which means opportunity again for the public to weigh in. Those 9 included 2 that actually have some technical changes. So let me let me start with the listing, okay? School board access to information and reports, policy 2110.1. Board member school visits, policy 2111.1. The code of ethics, 2160. The board bylaws policy, 2300. School volunteers, 4532. Vendor relations, policy 6750. Purchase of food, meals, and refreshments, policy 6835. Support services goal, policy 8000, that's new. Actually, several of these in here are new. And the 9th one is reporting improper governmental action and protecting employees against retaliation, otherwise known as the district whistleblower policy 9645. Now, of the 9, policy 2160 was our code of ethics. One of my colleagues here on the board pointed out that there was a reference to an exhibit from a policy that we had just rescinded. So there's effectively a technical change to policy 2160 that differs from what was actually voted out of committee. I ask you to review the yellow highlighted portion of that policy in board docs. I think you'll find it's more acceptable. It had to do with the definition of parent, and it was an exhibit from a previous policy that had been rescinded that held that definition. So it was kind of necessary to go back and fix that. The other change you'll see is in policy 2300, our bylaws, there's on page 5 of the track changes version, there are 2 comments in pink. The committee name change that was discussed in September 19th, which is the HR committee. The other recommended change includes amending a sentence that is in our current policy but was inadvertently omitted from the policy that we reviewed in our policy committee. So if my colleagues will take a close look at that and reach out if you have any concerns about those revisions. And finally, in our first reading, we have one recommended rescission. It's policy 9460, incidental teaching. Excuse me. And that actually does complete everything. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Powell. So the next item on the agenda is the board committee structure and meeting times. With regard to the board committee structure, it looks like we'll have more conversation around that. But with the meeting times, we have really had some challenges with getting to our meetings, work schedules, and other things of that nature. And so what I'd like to be able to do basically is to, propose or open it up. I propose we're doing it at 6 o'clock, but let me just open it up to folk about our start time for the meetings. Of course, we'll still have our business meeting that starts at 6:30, but in this case, we're talking about the committee meeting. So let me just open it up. I prefer 6 o'clock. And the reason that was also brought up too, State Monitor also pointed out to me that, we say that we're going to start these meetings at 5:30. There are people who may be in the audience that are expecting us to start at 5:30, and we don't. So I think in order to just ensure that we're starting on time because we have an audience, we may need to consider another time. I'm open to 6 o'clock, but let me just open it up to my colleagues. Commissioner Malloy?
I'm fine with either.
Okay. Commissioner Adams?
I'm fine with either time.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Adams?
I from the experience that I have on this board, I would recommend 6 o'clock. People repeatedly, we don't even have a quorum. There's so much stuff that we can't do. People have jobs, and it's for this board here. It's definitely more better. There's a lot of people don't even get off work till 5 o'clock. So I think 6 o'clock would be fine personally, and we just gotta try not to drag them out. That don't mean we go a half hour or 11 o'clock at night, but
Right.
still, I think 6 o'clock would be fine.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Powell?
So I think I need a little clarification. Our business meetings have always started at 6:30, and we often schedule celebrations that start at sometimes 5, or reception at 5, and then a celebration that starts at 5:30. When we don't have celebrations, we're often trying to squeeze a suspension appeal in before our meeting, so that gets scheduled at 5:30. And those are often the cases where we can't get a quorum, because folks have set aside the 6:30, but they're just not, for me, I'm still traveling at 5 o'clock and 5:30, so often very difficult for me to get here for a 5:30 suspension hearing or any other activity that was scheduled prior to our regular scheduled meeting. If what you're asking for, Madam President, is that some of those events not start at 5:30, but for those activities to start at 6 o'clock, I can certainly accommodate that.
All right, let me just open it up to, let me just also welcome Commissioner Patterson, who's on Zoom as well. I don't know if you heard part of the conversation, since you're on the screen now, that I can extend your input into this conversation, Commissioner Patterson.
Yes, thank you. For myself, I respect all my colleagues and their comments relative to the time and wanting to change. But I've often seen that these meetings, or experienced, I should say, that these meetings run late. And what I see, if we push it back another half an hour, that there's going to be other nights that we're going to run relatively late. And that's not good for us, because my thought is that, the later it gets at night, the more or less attentive we are to, the issues at hand. And I know I'm tired as it gets later into the night. But then again, when most of us took the board seats and we wanted these positions, we expected the meetings to begin at 5:30, and knew those meetings would begin at 5:30. And again, I don't know what happened before my tenure, but when I accepted the position, I thought that these meetings would begin at 5:30, and expected them to do so. But again, I respect what you're saying, and everyone else is saying, my colleagues. But for me personally, when we accepted these positions, we knew what time these meetings would be as commissioners, and I would like to stick to the earlier start date, just because as it gets later in the evening, we're less attentive, and we need to be attentive to the decisions that we're making and the topics at hand.
Thank you, Commissioner Patterson. I would just also point out, historically, these meetings started at 6 o'clock. So I just wanted to add that the 5:30 meeting is sooner. Let me just go to Vice President LeBron or Commissioner Simmons. Do you have any input for this conversation?
Yeah, I have my
Vice
hand
President?
up too, President Elliott, so I'm waiting. But so echoing and seconding what you just said, these meetings did used to start at 6 o'clock. And also, just again, to point out, they weren't committees of the whole, so everybody wasn't required to be there, just depended on your committee. And also, let me just add, because I will take credit for the fact that we meet Tuesdays and Thursdays, because I push for us to pick 2 days a week versus meeting Monday through Friday, which was what the previous setup used to be, and that our meetings have ran to 1 or 2 in the morning. All of those things come with running for office and accepting a position, including the flexibility. But it does us no good to say we're starting at 5:30 and then we have a hard time starting on time, whether it's technology issues or the fact that people can't get there on time, myself included. I also have to bring up attendance because there have been a number of absences from certain board members, nothing put on record, but God forbid that I'm on Zoom and I'm off camera and I have one particular board member that always feels the need to bring up my attendance, but is mum's the word about her little allies on the board. And so I have to put that out there because as we're addressing the time, we need to start addressing attendance, and the public has the right to know why people are there, they're not there, whether I'm off camera to vote, I'm off camera to vote, but I always make the effort to either still be on Zoom listening, whether I can't actively vote, legally participate because I can't be on camera, or go back and watch the meetings. So I just have to say all that. And lastly, my vote is going to be that we push back to 6 o'clock. Myself included, I can't always make it at 5:30. And I'm not even going to guarantee that I'm going to make it at 6 because I'm expanding my hours at the center. And so if I have a crisis that walks in, I have to address that crisis before I'm able to head out. So, but I'm still going to vote for 6 o'clock. And then with that said, I just want us to all aim to be there before 6 so that we're starting the meeting at 6 and not that we're arriving at 6 and then staff is waiting for us to get situated and before we can go live and start the meeting. That's all I'm going to ask.
Thank you, Vice President. Commissioner Simmons, do you have any input?
Thank you. Of course, I prefer 5:30, but I do acknowledge that on some recent occasions, even I struggled to get here with the different commute, not going around the corner to central office, but actually having to commute over to East High. So with that, I was able to make some adjustments myself to make sure that I was able to uphold the commitment of 5:30. But listening to the dialogue this evening, it sounds like a great majority of my board colleagues are in agreement that 6 o'clock is the time. It's only a 30-minute difference, so I'm not going to belabor that point. I will be happy to support a 6 o'clock piece, and I'll just stop there.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Commissioner Malloy?
Yeah, just to clarify, although I said I would support either 5:30 or 6, my preference is 5:30, mainly because I'm just concerned about our many employees who are here supporting us and, you know, extending their already long day even further.
Yeah, but you know, actually, you know, it's been the exception that we have been meeting late. I mean, we have not really been meeting, we really have not been meeting really late. You know, every now and then when there have been executive sessions that we've had to convene, but typically, if we look at it, these meetings have been, you know, relatively short, you know, so I don't anticipate, other than about a half an hour more than what, you know, what we, you know, seem to be meeting and the time that we've been spending over the, you know, last, you know, year or so, haven't been too bad. So are we able to take a vote now on that, or Ms. Wynn?
Good evening. Yes, and I believe General Counsel Neal is online if he'd like to chime in, but we are able to take a vote on that.
All right. General Counsel, can we have your input?
Yes, I think you can take a vote on it. You know, I discussed with the board clerk, and I think it should include some very specific language, however, to really kind of maintain some flexibility, because the board bylaws really does set a kind of general framework for the time. And so I think you can take a vote, but it should include language that effectually says, you know, the board is going to, the board wishes to have meetings commence at 6 p.m. But the board also recognizes that unforeseen matters could require a change in this meeting time. And for any such meetings, a time will be noticed in accordance with the bylaws and statutory requirements. Because I really don't want to put the board in a position, excuse me, I apologize, I'm a little under the weather today, where a time is set via resolution, and then for some reason that time needs to be changed, and then you're in the conundrum of having to call a meeting just to change that time or to rescind that time. So I think you can make a vote, with that language, still building in a little bit of flexibility for a change in an unforeseen circumstance.
All right, thank you,
Madam
General
Chair?
Counsel. Commissioner Powell?
So based on what the council just said, I did sort of speed read through policy 2300. It does lay out the agenda, but I'm not seeing any place where our bylaws dictate a start time. So it seems to me that if we just do this by consensus, that leaves the freedom to alter the start time on a case-by-case basis as you, the president, see fit.
Well, I wouldn't have a problem with the vote. General Counsel, what's your thought about what Commissioner Powell just said?
I think you could do that. I mean, the board knows by this point my opinion on kind of like straw polls. I think if you're going to put something in effect, especially for other people to enact or to follow, maybe a vote with that specific language. Again, still maintaining that flexibility would be fine. Historically, I do think it has operated under just a general kind of understanding, between the board members and in conversations with the clerk about setting meeting times. So yes, the bylaws do build in flexibility, but in order to effectuate, to make sure everyone is on the same page, you can't have a vote with that flexibility built into it.
All right, General Counsel, so having said that, let me just offer this as a motion. The board recognizes that unforeseen matters could require change in this meeting time, and for any such meetings that the time will be noticed in accordance with bylaws and requirements. And so
statutory requirements.
Statutory requirements, yeah. And so do I offer the motion in terms of the meeting starting at 6 o'clock, or just leave this language?
Excuse me.
As such.
I'm sorry, President Elliott.
No problem.
Two things I would just add or ask about is that this will require a change to the board calendar, so maybe you want to include that language already approving that change. And additionally, is there a desired start date for the 6 p.m. time? I would suggest perhaps November 1st when we go back to CO or planned to go back to CO, so everything kind of starts fresh instead of next week.
Okay, so November 1st, everybody agreeing with November 1st? Let me just offer, make sure that the commissioners that are on Zoom heard that we're talking about the meetings at 6 beginning November 1st. So Commissioners Powell, Commissioners Simmons, Patterson, and Vice President LeBron, did you hear that recommendation that we start November 1st with our committee meetings?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with it.
All right. Commissioner Simmons?
Yes.
All right. Commissioner Patterson?
If you're asking us to vote on when it begins, I'm okay with that, but I'm against moving the time to o'clock.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Patterson. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Adams. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice President LeBron. Any other questions or comments relating to this motion?
Madam President.
Commissioner Powell?
So my question is, do we want to include the language of this resolution that's just been proposed be incorporated into our bylaws in the section under order of business or thereabouts?
General Counsel, what's your thoughts about what Commissioner Powell just?
I don't think that would work in this circumstance because the bylaws do require a week's notice for kind of proposed changes, amendments. Of course, you can make, if the body by a majority wants to make an amendment on the fly, you could likely do that. But I think because I think a change to the actual bylaws would be unnecessary, and the language of the resolution you just passed already kind of builds in that flexibility to go back to the bylaws as needed. So, you know, again, I think the resolution allows the body to do what it needs to do without the complication of the notice requirements in the bylaws, the supermajority requirement in the bylaws, and kind of maybe short-circuiting a little bit that process that the bylaws are going through right now.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed?
All right, thank you. So effective November 1st, we'll start our meetings at 6 p.m. And the last item on the agenda is the suspension of Section 4F of the board bylaws.
I wouldn't do this, Madam Chair, if hadn't been called out for doing it in the past, but so far as I can tell, the vote was 4-1. We did not see the other two cast their votes.
All right, so Commissioner Simmons and Vice President LeBron, can you be on camera to cast your votes?
Yes, no problem. I was on camera when I said it, so I'm not sure you did not see me, but I was on camera.
All right.
So if you're going to watch the camera, make sure you see me.
All right,
I went on camera. I don't know what else to do. Do I need to do it again? Because I was on camera.
Yeah, so I'm told Rahima did see both Vice President LeBron. Yeah. So
Okay,
it may be
thank
the
you.
technology of this.
Picking up who's talking.
Okay.
Not seeing the gallery.
Yeah, all right, thank you. All right, so we're good, thank you. So we're talking about the suspension of Section 4F of the board bylaws. This has to do with the speakers to allow at all of our meetings up until we vote on October 19th, that we suspend the bylaws to include those people that want to talk about the school closing, school reconfigurations, and that it may not be on any of our other committees, that we suspend the bylaws to include that folk that would like to come in and talk about the school reconfiguration and the school closures are able to do so. All right, is that clear?
President Elliott, yes, but can I just ask why we also just can't put it as a standing agenda item on every board meeting up until the vote?
I think it's because of our bylaws, we need to be adhering to our bylaws, and if
It
we're
would
not-
still adhere to the bylaws. If the bylaws say that, speakers who sign up have to speak to the items that are being discussed on the agenda. So we just add the section. I'm okay either way, whether we want to vote on it.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious to why we just couldn't add it as part of the agenda for every meeting from now on until that vote happens, to allow for people to sign up that way.
But for one thing, I don't think it may not be an agenda item, or people may not, let me back up. People who may want to speak, I think that, I guess either way, but we're going to let's talk about this way, that we thought about that, or at least Rahima thought about, that we suspend the bylaws for it. Commissioner Powell?
Yeah, so when we talk about opening up every meeting, we're talking about committee meetings.
Yes.
The one prerogative, perhaps the only prerogative of chairing a committee is that the chair sets the agenda for that meeting. So if we want to, as a matter of consensus, just agree to, as committee chairs, to open up our meetings, that's one thing, but to essentially demand that the committee chairs give up the one prerogative they have of setting the agenda,
Yeah, we thought that this may be a way to get more people to participate in the conversation around
I
this.
understand, and so I think I think what I'm getting at is, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar, that we call upon the committee chairs to do so voluntarily and not strong-arm the chairs into accepting those terms.
If I
Well,
may
let's take a
speak.
vote. I think the best way. Commissioner Simmons?
Yes, with this particular process and what comes with it, I'm definitely in support of anything that will allow community members to feel, to be heard, in the manner in which they need to be. So whatever that looks like, I support it, because it's not about us. So I wouldn't feel strong-armed, and I'm speaking for myself specifically, so I'm ready to vote.
All right, any other questions or comments related to the suspension of Section 4F of the bylaws? All right, so is there a motion to suspend?
Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second. So it was moved by Commissioner Malloy, seconded by Vice President LeBron. Any other questions or comments related to suspending the Section F4 of the bylaws? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
All right,
Nay.
all right. So that is 5-2. All righty. We do not have an executive session tonight, but I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, seconded by Vice President LeBron. So we will end the special meeting to consider resolutions and unfinished and new business from the September business meeting. And so this meeting will end. And good night. We will start with the Policy Committee. Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Madam President. Apologies for wearing my sweatshirt like a blanket. It's freezing in here. You don't get to see what I'm actually wearing. The first order of business is a vote to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by, well, actually, Commissioner Patterson, I heard Commissioner Adams second it. Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Discussion? No suggested additions or changes. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. We have no speakers. Agenda item 3 is to approve the minutes from September 5. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, second by Commissioner Patterson. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Any discussion, corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over. There are no NISBA policy recommendations this cycle.
Commissioner Powell,
Yes, ma'am.
can I make a motion to pause the meeting momentarily? We've lost quorum. Oh, sorry, no, is there any way, because
Do we need a
we need
recess?
a recess.
You-
Sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah, we don't need a motion to recess.
Sorry.
I'll just call for a recess for 5
A
minutes.
brief recess, just so that we can.
Thank
yeah,
you.
thanks.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
But you have quorum on Zoom, like I'm confused.
We have to have 4 people physically present.
Yep, you need 4 people physically present at the location.
Well, she's still physically there. She went to the bathroom, Adrian.
And she's left the room to use the facilities. So we had to recess. And we'll start up again in 5 minutes.
All right, well.
Thank you, Tom. The Policy Committee of the Whole is back in session after a brief recess. I apologize to my colleagues for not asking whether we needed a comfort break before we started this meeting, and I appreciate my colleagues keeping us within the boundaries of the law in terms of maintaining our quorum in our in-person portion. We left off at the Code of Conduct Committee. Charisma, we have appointments to announce?
Yes, good evening. If you look on board docs on the administration, it shows you the committee members. So next week, Wednesday, is the first Code of Conduct Committee. So the committee will be resuming, and there's a good mix of folks who were on the committee last year and new committee members. And so, yeah, the first meeting is next week. And so, of course, commissioners are always welcome, to stop by. I can email those details as to where the committee meeting will be held. And once the schedule is finalized, I can also share that as well. But yes, if you look at board docs, you can see the folks that are currently has suggested to join the committee.
Okay. The next item.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, I'm sorry to interrupt. And Charisma, please correct me if I'm mistaken, but I did see September NISBA updates. Did we cover those last meeting regarding like 4321.1 physical restraints and some of those updates?
So if you're referring to the updates that came the end of September, we didn't put it on for this agenda because they literally just came, I think, last week.
Right.
I was going to bring that up to you for November's meeting.
Got it. I did get a chance to take a quick look, so I actually could give the update if the commissioner so chose, but if not, we will skip it.
We'll have those on the October agenda. Thank you for having eyes on that for us. Appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to return the mic to our able staff assistant for item 4A, the policy presentation.
All right, so for tonight, the policies under review are policies 2410, 4205, 4206, and 5460. The policies follow the normal policy roadmap, come into subcommittee, then go into executive cabinet. There was no community input, and then came back to subcommittee, and now it's tonight on the agenda. These are the folks who were a part of the review of these 4 policies. And so, unlike previous presentations, you'll see that there's no NESBA recommendation column because all 4 of these policies at one point have been reviewed during this policy manual. The reason why they're coming back is because 2 of those policies require, so actually maybe let's go one by one. Policy Management 2410, there's been recommended updates to align with the current policy practice. Policies 4205 and 4206 requires an annual review by the state, and so that's why you're seeing it again, but there are no significant changes. And then policy 5460, suspected child abuse and neglect, there has been some updates through state law, and so what happened was there was a NESBA recommended policy in the 9000 series, and so some language was taken from that policy that NESBA had recommended to put into our current 5460 policy to update it to what was required. And so the goal is that all 4 of those policies will follow the policy 2410's requirement, and they will be voted on at the December business meeting. Thank you, Commissioner Powell.
Okay, so as you can see, we have a very short agenda. We're going to take each one In its turn, policy 2410, if we can put up the track changes version. And you may, for the viewing audience, may have to zoom right in on the red letters to see what some of those changes are. Specifically, the biggest changes are there in the fourth paragraph. And it replaces language that has the superintendent initiating policy changes with the sentence, "The board will maintain a process for policy manual review. The superintendent and their administration will assist in the review and evaluation." So as policy is the domain of board members, it did seem awkward, maybe even incorrect to have the superintendent initiate. That's not to say the superintendent won't bring recommendations to the policy committee, but it's up to the policy committee to own those changes. So, and then an additional new sentence, third from the bottom, superintendent, employees, students, parents, and/or community of the district may recommend new policies or policy changes to the board when a policy is not under review. We've always had this document, the 2410E1. It's almost never used, but it's possible that the language of our policy, in fact, discouraged its use by describing it in such a convoluted way that they didn't understand. So Charisma actually designed a different form that's much more user-friendly. And then going to the next page, the language around first and second and third readings has been modified just to make it a little bit more user-friendly. Are there any questions or observations about policy 2410?
Commissioner Powell, I just wanted to clarify, make sure I heard you right. So the language has been modified. I have to pull it up. I'm sorry. It's been modified to express that the superintendent will bring recommendations, you're saying?
Right. The superintendent can continue, like, as always, as he always could, recommend changes, but it puts the policy puts the focus on the board owning.
As it should. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with it being on the board. So I just want to make sure I did hear that properly. Thank you.
You bet. Okay. Any other comments? If not, I'll take a motion to move it out of committee.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, second by Commissioner Adams. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Has Commissioner is that Commissioner? Yep, okay. Okay. Is that a yes, Commissioner LeBron?
Yeah, I already voted, yes.
Okay, so we're done with 2410. The next one is policy, sorry, can't see from the glare on my, 4205. If we want to pull up track changes. There's literally a 2-3 words changed for readability and completeness. This had been reviewed once before. Can I get a motion to approve, to move this out of committee?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Adams. Any questions? Comments, observations, objections? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. The next policy is number 4206. Charisma, do you have that? Okay, Charisma, there's some funny, yours looks different than mine. You'll have to,
I don't see track changes.
are those spelling corrections, or there's three yellow spaces there in the body in the middle? Or are there comments that have been inserted?
I think when it transferred over to PDF, it did something weird.
Yeah, something strange happened.
Yeah, trying to. I don't know.
We may have to provide to our colleagues the track changes just to make sure, in a Word document by email or something, so that we can see what.
I was going to say, if you wanted to do the other policies, I can see if I can quickly swap.
See if we can get it fixed before we move on? Okay.
Yes.
Is that acceptable to everybody? We're going to suspend the motion on the table and come back to it. Very good. So that leaves policy 4311, 5460, the suspected child abuse and neglect policy. Adrian, as general counsel, do you want to talk to us about the finer points of this? Well,
Right, yep, the child abuse policy kind of reiterates obligations on the part of the district and personnel as it pertains to suspected child abuse and neglect. As district employees get training on yearly, they're mandated reporters at certain certification levels. And so it really just kind of spells out a protocol of what's expected. There is also an accompanying superintendent's regulation as well, I believe 5640R, which again gives additional guidance on, what the expectations are as it relates to reporting and how those matters should be handled, if there's any suspected or any kind of reported child abuse.
so on the track changes under, let's see, page 2, the bottom of page 2, top of page 3, there are 2 new bullets, A and B, that clarify.
Right. Yep. Those addressed, I think, contracted service providers. And so in some of the, the updates and recent guidance, most school districts employ or contract with a number of external entities, organizations for services who may come in contact with students. And so those bullets were really to kind of expand, requirements for who, this policy might cover and under what circumstances reporting needs to start occurring.
Right. And this is to keep us in compliance with SED regs, right?
Yep.
So.
And ultimately for the safety and protection, of the students.
Right. So do I have a motion to advance this to the full board?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Second by Commissioner Adams. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of advancing it to the full board?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Simmons dropped off the call? Oh, sorry to see that. Okay. So the motion carries 6-0. Are you ready? Okay, great. Going back to 4206, we have the track changes. And I don't want to log off to get the new version of the board doc, so we're just going to follow Charisma's bouncing ball. There's a number of acronyms that have been changed from all uppercase. It's essentially the response to intervention that appears throughout in a different case. That's a large portion of the track, of what I'm seeing on the track changes. A couple of very minor language changes. Okay, and we might want to pause on this section that's got comments inserted so that we can, and it refers to first tier, tier 1 intervention, bilingual students, and other English language learners in this paragraph. It specifically refers to the iReady diagnostic. Thank you. We do already have a motion and a second, so let me give folks an opportunity to digest this since it did not come through board docs. Clearly, we couldn't do our homework on this one.
Who motioned and seconded? I'm sorry.
It was Commissioner Malloy and Commissioner
Okay.
Adams.
And then if you refresh your board docs, I reattached it for so you can see it.
Thank you, Charisma. You're definitely adept at keeping us on track and managing more than one thing at once. I appreciate you.
Is this 4206 or 4206?
Commissioner Malloy, is that a question maybe the rest of us might benefit from?
Oh, I just wanted to know if this was 4205 or 4206.
4206.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the tracked changes copy, and never mind, I just found it. Thank you. It's the bottom.
So you're having trouble managing the screen there, Amy? It's ours. Yeah, it's pretty much ours, yeah. Yep.
I just have a quick
You have a
question.
question?
So as I look at how specific this policy is, this is very specific to the day-to-day operations of the district. And I like in this policy how we talk about the benefits of intervention, but in a policy, it would seem to me that that's all we would need. And I know that we use iReady, and it's a wonderful tool, and I love it. It's a diagnostic tool, and more importantly than being a diagnostic tool, it offers intervention opportunities for our teaching staff. I don't know that this needs to be necessarily put into policy at this time.
Since this was an administrative recommendation, I'm going to ask the superintendent to respond to that. You know, so there are multiple reasons why things end up in policy, and sometimes it's to reinforce the desires of the superintendent so that he's not the bad guy that has to always enforce things. But that's just one of many reasons.
100%. Like, so that there is some interventions that need to happen after assessment data is given and reviewed, right? And that's why we looked at this. I do worry about, and as I read this and as I think a little bit about being specific in programmatic needs and names, because it may change from one year to the next. To the, we're right now all in iReady, but who's to say that something may not come that's a better source? So I'm wondering if when we go to this, we could look at maybe a diagnostic in general and just kind of
Leave it at that.
trim that down a little bit.
Now, just to be devil's advocate, Mr. Superintendent, if the administration were to decide that there's a different tool they want to use besides our I'm Ready, wouldn't you want to get the blessings of the board before doing that? And what better way to get the blessings of the board than to propose a policy change?
Well, I think it would frame itself in two ways, because if I'm going to, in some cases, purchase a new program, it's going to come to the board in that way anyway. So it will come to the board in one way, shape, or form. So in terms of policy, I don't know if mentioning an actual diagnostic is the way to go. You should definitely say we should be using diagnostics, and we should be using that to inform instruction. I will bring forth, if there's a new program, an RFP for the board to approve, and I think that would be the appropriate venue for that.
So, go ahead, Charisma.
I'm sorry. All I wanted to say is that this is actually one of the policies that require an annual review. So that's also why, as I mentioned earlier, this policy already came through the manual process we're currently in, and it's back because it requires an annual review. And so if, let's say, there's a new assessment that changes in the next year, that's another way. If you all decide to keep the language currently, you can always update it based on whatever the new assessment name is.
Yeah.
Commissioner Malloy.
So I think I hear what everyone's saying. I just wonder if it belongs in our policy manual. The training that I've been going through for Council of Great City Schools talks about going on a policy diet, per se, and not putting everything that we do into policy. We're painting ourselves into a corner, I think, by doing that. Although, again, I love this diagnostic tool, and I'd love to see it widely used to help with intervention, but I don't believe that it belongs in our policy manual.
So let me frame it as a question to the superintendent. If we made the language more generic and said, instead of specifying iReady, referred to a diagnostic tool, would the metrics in this paragraph remain the same? Would they still have relevance?
Yes, absolutely.
So, so we have some choices. We can send it back to the author of this paragraph, or we could agree to move it forward, replacing iReady with the language diagnostic tool. And then at the first reading, everyone would see it with that revision.
So we could take it back to the team and review. So I would send it back to the team.
Okay.
Because I think as a board, we're supposed to be operating from the 30,000-foot level, and by putting things into policy that are regarding the day-to-day operations of the district, we are getting into the weeds a bit. Yeah. And I worry that it's a slippery slope when we do this type of policy.
So I don't disagree with you, but because this came from the administration, I suggest that we take the superintendent's tactic and have him take it back to his people to review and look at it from the vantage point that you just described.
Okay. I would also say that, as a board, we haven't come up yet with goals, board goals for the year, and I think that those types of tools, et cetera, are all the inputs and guardrails that we try to implement. But again, we have to come together as a board, and I know we're working on that. Yeah. But it might behoove us to wait a bit on this so that we can get goals in place.
Okay. So we did have a motion and a second. Would you choose to withdraw your motion?
I'll withdraw the motion.
And does the does Commissioner Adams as the seconder agree to withdraw the motion? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
He agrees.
He agrees? Okay. So the motion is withdrawn. Without a motion on the floor, the issue will return to the administration and to subcommittee. Thank you, sir. Okay, the next policy on our agenda, and is it the last one? It is not the last one. The civics education policy 4111.2 is one of the few that we haven't taken any action on. I'm asking, and this is one that the board had a very active interest, and the community as well, a very active interest in the past. I don't think we're ready to do a full overhaul, and yet we're at the very end of the policy manual. So I would like to recommend that we affirm the policy as it stands until next year, when you have a board with a new composition to review it. Yes.
Just a question about this policy. Is this a legally mandated policy in New York State to have this in a policy manual?
I highly...
Or is it under discretion of the district?
This is a discretionary policy.
I would highly recommend to the board that we look at our policy manual moving forward and not include things that aren't explicitly required under New York State law. I'm not saying that civic education is not important.
Yeah.
I'm a social studies teacher, but I don't know if it needs to be in our policy manual.
What, can I
Yes, please.
sort of weigh in here? You know, I think that we certainly need to align our policies with New York State, but I also think that there are times when, for our community, that we may need to put some, you know, policies in here on the local level. And if I'm correct, if I'm correct, Commissioner Powell, the civic policy really came from our community around, you know, ensuring civic education and what have you. And so, you know, I think that we need to have some latitude about including, you know, those policies from the board level that would come from our community. So.
Yes, the origins of this, the values policy was originally adopted, I think, in 1987 as part of the Great Reform Agenda. It underwent a more recent change, and including the title change, when the board asked one of the original community members, Bill Benet, to evaluate the policy and make some recommendations. Certainly, this is one of those policies that is not required, and we could rescind it.
What year was that?
Huh?
What year did you mention that this was put into place?
Originally, in 1987 was the year of the Great Reforms. It included everything from the Urbanski-McWalters union contract to a whole series of major policy initiatives and so on. Way before my time.
Yeah. I only mention this because this type of civic education, and I agree with President Elliott that it's really valuable to come from the community. These are reflections of the community's values and beliefs, and we have to affirm that and acknowledge it. But I would say here that if you look at the 2016 New York State Social Studies Framework, these same items, it's a bit redundant. It's all in here already, this type of civic education. So we do have that affirmation, and we can continue to highlight and uplift it, but I don't know if we should still have a policy in our manual from 1987 if we see the New York State framework having been updated back in 2016.
Commissioner Powell?
Well, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this was, particularly before COVID, I remember Bill Benet coming in to you know, have us to affirm the policy every year. So while the original date may be in 1987, I think before COVID, Bill Benet was coming in to talk about this policy on an annual basis, so just share that.
As I say, this is a tricky policy, mostly because it does have its roots in the community and community activism. I am personally, as the chair, reluctant to tamper with it, either to change it or to rescind it, and I'm really asking to be relieved of that burden by asking you just to affirm it as it is and invite the next policy chair to do that particular lift. President Elliott, would you be willing to move it?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Did I see Commissioner Patterson? Did I see you second it? Thank you.
Sorry, yes, I was on mute.
I saw your lips moving, but I didn't hear anything. Okay. Again, Commissioner Malloy, I totally understand where you're coming from. Are there any other comments? Did Commissioner Simmons manage to get back online?
No, she put a note that she has to depart.
She had to depart the meeting? Is that what you said? Okay. All right. Commissioner LeBron, do you have any comments?
No, if I did, I would raise my hand. Thank you.
Well, I wouldn't have been able to see it. So, Commissioner Patterson, any thoughts? Are you willing to?
No comments, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Adams, you okay with just kicking the can down the road? All right, so the motion is to affirm the policy as it stands until next year. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
And was that one nay?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's, let's see, 5-1, and with Commissioner Simmons absent? Okay. All right, that takes us to agenda item 4H. Commissioner Travis. Charisma Travis.
Prophesy, prophesy, speak it.
Right.
Charisma, would you take the lead on this?
Yes. All right, so policy deliverables. So this conversation is about, a couple months ago, we recall, the policy deliverables for the policy manual was presented. And we have 54 policies that have deliverables that are attached to it. And so we worked with administration to review those deliverables to determine if any of them needed to be removed or amended. And so at this time, right now, we have 5 modifications to deliverables, and then there are 5 that are being recommended to be removed. There are 17 that require a policy review, so whether it says annually need to be reviewed or biannually, and then 35 are state or federal required, 19 are required by the board, and then 17 are duplicated, meaning that they fall into more than one category. So these are the policies that are being recommended for either modifications or removal. There are some policies that's on the list that already are going through readings, so they won't be on tonight's agenda as a motion to amend. And there are some policies that, so from the removal list, policy 9460, independent teaching policy, is actually in the readings to be rescinded. Actually, if I just stop right here for 1 second. And so also attached to board docs is an overview of the policy deliverables. Things that are in red, so you'll notice, for example, policy 110, sexual harassment policy, the red are the revisions. This is what's being requested to be revised in the policy. And then any policy that is highlighted red, the deliverable is asking to be removed altogether. So the policy would remain, but the actual language for deliverable would be removed. And so I can pause there for a second, Commissioner Powell, if you want, before I finish the rest of the PowerPoint? Or do you want me to just finish the whole PowerPoint?
So just let me comment that the table that you saw, we've maintained a table like this with the actual language of the policies that required something of us, whether it was a report or a review or something of that, along those lines. We've had a table like that for a very long time. Charisma and Chief of Staff, and I'm not sure who else weighed in on it, but pored over that language to come up with the changes that you're seeing recommended here. I'm glad to see that 5 out of those, how many, 57?
54.
54 are being recommended to have the deliverable portions deleted from the policy. I wish we could do more because it still creates an extraordinary burden. But as the one slide showed, a large number of those policy deliverables are actually required by state or federal government. So they're not really in our purview, even though the reports or the reviews have to come to us or are driven by us as a board. So, so the question was, did you want to keep going through the table?
I can continue so the rest of the presentation is just talking about if we were to continue following the deliverable calendar. I can give a brief of October, November, December of where the board would be at in terms of administration reporting out deliverables, or did you want to take the motions for those policies that need to be amended first before I move on?
Okay. As you said, many of them are already embedded in the policies that are either in first or second readings or that we just approved out of committee here. If it's specifically I guess I need you to restate your question.
So on the agenda, there are 5 policies who have modifications. Well, 4 have modifications. No, sorry, let me double check there. 1 have a modification. The other 4 it's being asked to remove the deliverable. And so my question to you is, did you want to do the motions for them to be forwarded out the policy committee, or do you want me to continue with the rest of the presentation?
Gotcha. Let's go ahead and go through agenda items for I, J, K, L, and M individually. So, but if you want to hold on that screen. So Public Information Program Policy 1100 is on the side of the chart that shows we want to remove the deliverable language. Do I have a motion to approve that change and advance it to the full board?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Seconded by?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Patterson. Any objection to having the deliverable was, can you read that for us, Charisma, because I can't.
The superintendent will periodically evaluate the public relations program and advise the board of recommended modifications and improvements.
So as you can tell by that language, it's pretty milquetoast, and of course the superintendent can always recommend changes. So that's what's being proposed. Are there any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor of making advancing that amendment to the full board?
So moved.
Aye.
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 Okay, carries unanimously, 6-0? Okay, sorry.
Vice President LeBron just said nay.
She said nay? I thought I heard her say yes. I'm-
I said
she-
yes.
She said yes, she said yes.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I thought I heard. Okay, item J, Parent and Family Engagement Policy 1900. The recommendation, the language change is to what?
It's the date. So currently it says in August. The recommendation is September, so that it aligns with the CIGR meetings.
So, yeah, so August is not a good time to make any changes to parent and community engagement. So this is just to change the date from August to September? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second by, was that Commissioner Malloy?
No, Adams.
Oh, Commissioner Adams, thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. The next one, financial accountability, 6,000. Now, the 6,000 is a goal level policy. Charisma, can you describe what's being recommended there?
Correction action plans in response to external audit reports, state and/or federal audit reports, or other external reports requiring a corrective action plan will be provided to the board. Review of internal audit reports submitted to the board to understand the adequacy of district information systems and the internal controls related to fiscal and programmatic systems and procedures.
So as you said, that's the entire function of the policy committee, and removing that language is not going to change the mission of the policy committee. It just takes out some fairly generic language. Do I have a motion to approve? I have a motion from Commissioner Elliott.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Malloy. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, okay. Any opposed? Carries 6-0. Great. Moving right along, we have contracting for professional services, policy 6741.
After a thorough review of the proposals, the superintendent or designee will recommend to the Board of Education or Administration the professional service provider determined to be best suited for the district's needs.
Again, that's pretty milquetoast. It's obviously what superintendent's going to do anyway. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Malloy to strike that requirement, seconded by Commissioner Elliott. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Okay. Last one. Equal employment opportunity policy 9110.
The superintendent of schools shall have the responsibility to notify the board when this policy is not effective or when a change in this policy is required.
Are we seeing a pattern here?
So why do we want to remove that one though?
Because this one doesn't specify what, like a timeline, like annually or something. It just says whenever the policy is ineffective, which is part of the policy committee review.
It's essentially the charge of the policy committee and the superintendent on all policies, right? If something needs changing, it should be recommended for change. We don't need that kind of instruction to tell us. So, are you willing to move that, Commissioner Elliott?
Yes, I'll move it.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Malloy. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 motion carries 6-0. Okay, and we have one more presentation for you. This is the policy process presentation.
Do you want me to finish to show this piece of the?
Oh, there's more, okay.
This was just showing that when, as the manual is being closed and, you know, the policy committee continue doing its work of amending and adopting policies, but also making sure the deliverables are followed. This is just showing the calendar of how things should move forward with administration on presenting to the board. So right now we're in October, and as of now, we are, you know, on track. And so yeah, that's just a quick overview of October, November, and December. What should be happening.
Okay, so now you can see what there is to expect. If you go to the top of the screen again, Charisma, you'll notice that some of the, at least one is, the report's going to be delivered by email. We're not going to be taking up meeting time to accomplish it, okay? And some of these are not the purview of the policy committee, that it's the purview of the finance committee, and so on. Okay? Charisma, you want to take it away with the policy process?
So our current policy review process includes the policy subcommittee reviewing the policy batches, including the policy chair, general counsel, board staff, liaison, and any administration that is invited that are considered the content experts at the purview of the superintendent. Policies are then sent to executive cabinet and relevant advisory groups for feedback. And then periodically you may have to come back to policy subcommittee, and then it's presented to the board to determine on how to move forward. And so as we close out the manual, so this current manual we were in, it was started in 2020 and we're in it in 2023. But as you know, policies have to continue to be updated. And so this is the current, this is the proposed process that would take from 2023 to 2027. The goal is to have this process start in November, so next month. As part of this process, the hope is that the policy committee meetings change from meeting monthly to every other month with evening months. And so it would start, when the school year starts, it would be that the August would then, and so forth. And so with this new process, step one would be to develop a policy review calendar. The policy committee chair provides feedback and approval. Board staff will meet with the general counsel and chief of staff to create the policy review calendar to present to the policy committee chair. The policy review calendar is subject to change, of course, because things happen. And then step two would be NSBA policy updates and the board staff liaison review of the policies. So the board staff liaison will coordinate with the review of NSBA policy updates with general counsel to determine policies requiring a legal update. The board staff liaison will also review the policies and provide any comments to assist with the review, taking into consideration the board's direction, district plans, procedures, etc. And then step three will happen. And so relevant advisory groups will receive the policies slated for review and track change documents. These groups will submit in writing any policy recommendations to the board staff liaison within 30 days. Examples of advisory groups include SLC, PLAC, BEC, and CPAC. So as of right now in our current policy process, those groups don't provide feedback until administration reviews it. And so now they would, swaps, they will be reviewing it first. Step four, oh, sorry. Commissioner Powell, Commissioner Malloy has a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You may have covered this already, so if so, I apologize. I'm wondering, because it says the current process 2020 to 2023, and then this other process is, it's the same process, but 24 to 27. Why the 3-year increments, or how did that get established? Has it always been that way? Why do we revisit every 3 years, or?
Right. So the state monitor's recommendation was that we review it over, on a systematic basis. This actually goes back to Dr. Jallo's recommendation. And just from the standpoint of how many can we accomplish in a year, the idea was to do the review over 3 years so that we're not shortchanging anyone. We were able to we started this review process in 2020, and here we are in 2023, and we're just wrapping up one full rotation. It seems that it takes about 3 years to get through the manual if we're going to do it with the same degree of diligence that we did the first go
I just appreciate the time and effort spent, especially by our chair for this committee. I can only imagine, how much time this is actually taking. If all the committees, this involves a great deal of work. I'm just wondering, is this a process that's required by New York State, or if other Big 5 districts are engaging in this way with their policy manuals and taking that sort of time on policy?
Jaime might be able to tell us how they did in Syracuse. I can tell you that I don't believe it's mandated by the state, but it is mandated by our state monitor.
Okay. Because, again, I'm connecting to...
I don't know
I'm connecting to state.
Well, I think we blew up the sound system. I don't think that other Big 5 necessarily do it over a 3-year period, but we can let...
It is not required by New York State. Syracuse did it because we contracted with Erie Bosse's, and as part of that work, we revised the whole policy manuals, changing numbers and everything. So.
And since this is the first comprehensive review we've done since 1999, it was very much overdue, and it will be much less burdensome to stay on top of it by going through every policy systematically over a 3-year period than to try to do what we did, overhaul everything, all at once.
Obviously, just considering the best uses of our time, but the time that has been spent is much appreciated. Thank you.
And the hope is that we'll be able to meet only half as often, because not every policy is going to have a recommended change now that it's kind of brought up to the 21st century. Okay. Right? So, you want to keep going?
So step 4, district administration review. The board staff liaison will provide the chief of staff the policy slated for review and track change document, including the advisory group recommendations and any NSBA samples. So it bring it all together. It is requested that the superintendent and their executive cabinet will work with the district's content experts to review and recommend any policy changes by the policy committee preview meeting. And so that also would lessen the policy subcommittee meetings by administration taking the lead of bringing it all together. Step 5, the board staff liaison will send a calendar invite, for things that happen in policy committee preview, and then if the committee, so when it comes to, if the committee chair requests additional changes happen, and then, the administration will figure out those changes based on the chair's timeline. Step 6, the district administration will present recommended changes to the board. So during policy committee, the committee chair will motion for the policy to be forwarded out to policy committee. If the motion fails, a policy subcommittee meeting will be scheduled to update the policy to align with the board's vision.
Charisma, can you advance it to slides 5 or 6?
Thank you. I was using my other computer.
Let's take a minute to look at step 5, and just give us a second. Okay, and then step 6.
I can't concentrate.
Okay, is there more?
So step 7, once policies are forwarded out the policy committee, they will follow the policy management process to go through its 3 readings for review with the board vote at the 3rd reading. And then policies with identified timelines, so you have, like, for example, the Code of Conduct policy, policy 1400, will follow the same process unless otherwise specified. And then the final slide is just a reminder that policy exhibits and the superintendent's regulations do not follow this policy process, as neither require board approval and will be updated on the district's policy website as needed. And the final thing I wanted to mention, part of Commissioner Malloy's question, if you look on board docs, there's another attachment that's part of this agenda item. That's the policy review calendar. So it kind of outlines what the 23-27 will look like, and spreading out the review. And as you see, some policies that require annual reviews or a specific timeline, you'll see them on more than one time because of that reason. Thank you.
So the only thing I want to add to Charisma's presentation is, although I'll be gone December 31st, the staff is entirely committed to this schedule, to this concept. And so unless the next policy chair decides to throw it all in the trash and
Not
start
it.
over again, this is the way it's going to be. Okay? Did you say not it? Was that what you said?
Did indeed.
Okay. Thank you, Charisma, for that presentation. And the attachments are invaluable to all board members to, you know, if they want to see what's coming up on the horizon beyond the previous presentation that showed, you know, what's on the immediate horizon. This is the document you want to turn to. Okay?
Thank you for all your work on this, Commissioner.
Charisma's, have we covered everything? The only thing I see next is under item 6, the completion of the board meeting survey. There are no executive session tonight. And so as we are completing our survey, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Malloy, seconded by?
Too soon? Too quick?
Me.
Okay, Commissioner Elliott. I guess that's not a motion, that's under discussion, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for our watching audience for sticking with us. I appreciate you all out there. Good night.